Welcome to the Roost News. I'm Nancy McCammon Hanson. I am a Roost News volunteer based in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And today we have with us Addison Pollock, who works in our state office, and Sister Jane McClure, who works with Habitat for Humanity in Evansville, Indiana. And we're going to be talking about a partnership that AARP has with Habitat for Humanity. So Addison, who is the Director of Community Engagement for AARP Indiana, would you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So Addison Pollock, I live here in Indianapolis, Indiana, but work in both Indianapolis and Evansville, Indiana, as the Director of Community Engagement with AARP Indiana. So work alongside teams of volunteers in both communities on our outreach work, highlighting our priority issues, but also advocating locally on those livable communities issues, as well as I do a little bit of federal advocacy here in the state office as well, in the state as well.
Okay, thank you. And Sister Jane, and I have to tell you a side bit. My high school and junior high school principal was Harold McClure. He was also our next door neighbor.
Yes.
And he had a daughter whose name is Jane McClure. So
Oh.
this is the other Jane, Sister Jane McClure. And Sister Jane, would you tell us a little bit about what you do with Habitat?
Sure. For the last 19 years, I've worked in some role in development. And development, well, it's raising the necessary resources. But I always say development is what makes an organization achieve its highest destiny. That's always been my North Star. And it's about working to gain public acceptance and support. And it's about creating a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And I think that that is something where Habitat and AARP have really connected, a world where everyone has a decent place to live. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great to be here.
So let's get to our questions. I am curious as to how AARP got into a partnership with Habitat in Evansville. And did the state AARP office suggest that? Did Habitat for Humanity suggest it? How did this all happen?
Yeah.
Sure.
Addison, why don't you start?
Yeah, I was about to say, Sister Jane, I can kick this one off. So I was the instigator in this this scenario. I basically AARP Indiana, this is several years ago. This is more than 5 years ago at this point. Had an interest in housing work, so housing advocacy, trying to strengthen our housing stock for our aging populations across Indiana. We were just trying to get our feet wet in the housing advocacy space, and I worked in two different communities at that time, the other being Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the other one is Evansville. And what I was really hoping to do was try to find some way to make a statement, some way that we could really engage in the housing space, and because we're not developers at AARP Indiana or any AARP state office, we're not developers. We're not funders of housing necessarily. So just trying to figure out how we could bring some influence to making our housing more accessible, more age friendly, over time. So that was really the where I got the initial idea. We were talking with some colleagues about how we could make that statement, and Habitat for Humanity came up. And I was thinking, wow, this would be a great way for us to build essentially an accessible home, a home that could be, built for someone at any stage of their life, serve their needs at any stage of life. At AARP, we have a program called Home Fit, which does just that. It provides some do-it-yourself fixes, as well as some modifications that may require a professional to. Those are changes you can make to your home to allow you to age in place. So I wanted to highlight some of these features in a home build, and I thought, let's just call up one of these Habitat for Humanity affiliates and see if there's any traction there. I had struck out with a couple offices that I had contacted, but with Evansville, I believe I don't know who I talked to first, or if I think I sent an email actually, and then we set up a conference call, and it was Sister Jane Michelle, it was Beth Foles, their executive director, and it could have been someone else, Sister Jane, I can't remember who, but we just talked, and I had shared those goals, how I wanted this home bill to be sort of a symbol of our advocacy work in this space and kind of make that statement. And I also thought that, wow, we have a huge volunteer team down in Evansville, Indiana. Let's engage them in the home build process. So really take ownership over this project and make it our own. So I think that's where it kind of came from. Sister Jane, did I miss anything?
Well, I tell you, when I first got to know you, and like you said, Addison, it's been about 5 years ago now, but Addison shared the story of the founder of AARP, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, and how she began AARP because one of her professional colleagues, she was an educator, but one of her colleagues was living in a chicken coop. And in Dr. Andrus's own words, she said, "Everyone deserves a decent place to call home." Well, that could have been just excerpted from the Habitat playbook. Everyone deserves a decent place to call home. And I found that very inspiring. And as we started on this pathway of building this home, family selection, who is going to be the family that's going to live in the home? I can't think of a better family that would be representative of these goals that we both wanted to achieve. It was Louise Dixon and her brother Jack. And Louise grew up in Mississippi, where she worked in the cotton fields. She had never owned a home in her life. She was the caregiver for her brother Jack, who was homebound. And just working with the two of them was, I just think it was a wonderful experience for the AARP volunteers to get to know Louise. She was also providing a home for her 12-year-old grandson. And so just that whole idea of a place to call home, a place of your own, plus emphasizing the whole caregiving aspect that so many older Americans are part of. So it just was a wonderful experience. And our new mayor in Evansville, Mayor Stephanie Terry, she set a goal. She said in her April address, she said, "This time next year, I want to have 350 new units of affordable housing." Well, we're going to be watching that. And Habitat, AARP, we're going to be doing what we can to contribute to that effort. Anything else, Addison? Yeah.
Yeah, well, Sister Jane, I'm so glad you touched on the caregiving aspect because, Nancy, to answer your question, where did this partnership come from and this idea, one of the goals that we wanted to hit was we wanted to build a home for an older adult, someone 50 plus essentially. And just the fact that Louise is a caregiver too, that was just so powerful for us because that is one of our, as much of an important issue that Livable Communities is for us, caregiving is equally as important and is just so pervasive. So that was something that we were really fortunate to be able to highlight. So we were excited to do that.
Right. And to see their home at 1018 Linwood with the grab bar shower and the beautiful ramp for entryway and the 0-step entry into the front door, all of these things, really, it made visible and practical the things that Addison was talking about later, how we can age in place well and comfortably and safely. Yeah.
So I have a question. Having celebrated my birthday yesterday and realizing that I'm no longer 45.
Happy birthday.
And I haven't been 45 for quite a few years. were there any special considerations in asking older people to work on houses? Because I know Jimmy and Rosalind Carter are like the epitome of Habitat for Humanity volunteers. And I don't know how old they were when they finally ceased to be volunteering and working with Habitat, but they weren't kids anymore.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any special considerations when an older wants to work for Habitat?
Yes. Nancy, I think with Habitat and on a construction site, safety is always going to be paramount. That's always got to be something that is always it's got to permeate the whole process. And so things like roofing, getting up there and putting on those shingles, I'd say 40 years ago I was doing that for Habitat, but that's something that we subcontract now, because we know that our volunteers, actually we have a group, it's called the Core Crew. And the Core Crew are ladies and gentlemen, retirees who give at least 80 hours a year, and many of them do much more than that. But they come from all walks of life. And I think of Don and Chris and Dick and Joe. They were salespeople, they were a surgeon, they were farmers, and they're all in their 80s and they're still out there building. And I think, why? Because they've got purpose and meaning and they love what they do. And I think one of the greatest requirements for healthy aging is camaraderie, sociability, being with others, making new friends. And so, yes, safety comes first. And as we age, we know that there are certain things we can't do anymore. But yet to get together and do what you can and be with people that you enjoy and building homes for people in need, wow, pretty good. It's pretty good.
Addison, anything to add?
I just wanted to make a plug for the AARP Indiana volunteer team in Evansville. All of our, I think a large percentage of those volunteers were engaged in the home build.
Yeah.
We had a handful. I'm thinking of Joe, Donna, Fred, Linda, folks who really took to the actual building component of it. But then we had volunteers who were doing things that, may not have required, picking up a hammer or doing something like that, handing out water, being interviewed, with our communications folks, with the media, just talking up the project and promoting it. So there was always, someone always had something they could contribute, whether they, were picking up a saw or a hammer or not.
Mhm, mhm.
Hey,
And I just kind of like to piggyback on what Addison said too about one of the first things that the AARP volunteers did. This was September of 2019 when we first got to know each other. They put on a beautiful luncheon for the Core Crew. Remember that? It was beautiful. And as staff, we didn't have to do anything. They swooped in, they decorated the place, they brought the food, they cleaned it. I mean, so there is a role for everyone. And that was just a beautiful example of what the AARP volunteers did.
Definitely.
so in the process of this starting and then moving forward, I'm assuming you started with just members of AARP, but have you recruited outside of AARP?
Yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah.
go ahead. Do you want to go ahead, sister?
No, you go ahead, Acid.
I just wanted to say that for our part, we were really working within the parameters of the AARP Indiana team, volunteer team down in Evansville. We do have a day of service on September 11th, and we held it that year, working on the home in Evansville. And we had staff come down. We actually pulled from our larger area membership. We had a handful of folks who had never volunteered with AARP before and volunteered on that day, I believe. But otherwise, it was really the hard work of the Habitat for Humanity volunteer crew down there, whether it be the core crew or you had several groups come through on that home build, I believe, Sister Jane.
Right, right. I mean, I think Addison, what you just said, it's such an experience of community. That's, I remember the day of service and your entire staff from Indianapolis coming down, and then so many local volunteers, and it just, I mean, it was wonderful. It was just wonderful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think as we said earlier too, it's like people doing what they can. There was one day I remember when they helped install the windows. Well, some people were game for ladder climbing and some were game for that, but others were bringing things, painting, they were just always ready to push, pull, carry, bring water, whatever they felt comfortable doing. So
Right.
yeah.
And what was great about that, I just want to emphasize that the power of everyone has something to contribute. Like,
Yes.
whether you weren't lifting something heavy, like I had different volunteers come in at different phases of the project. I had some volunteers who were more comfortable painting, for instance, because that's a lot of folks can pick up a paintbrush, and the Habitat staff would come through and say, like, you missed a spot, which was really fun. And it was a great bonding experience because we were all missing spots, and we just had a great day painting, but we were out there swinging hammers too. And then even at the ribbon cutting, I mean, just having a large group of red shirts, AARP shirts, there
Yes.
representing, that made a statement, and we really appreciate the opportunity to even do that. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of that dedication, Addison, I will never forget Jack's son coming from Indianapolis with his wife, and I believe they had maybe a 5-year-old. I can't remember, brought the whole family, and just the gratitude that he felt for Louise taking care of his dad down here in Evansville, and then I just think he was absolutely blown away by all the volunteerism. All of your folks there, everybody showing support, special gifts for the family. It was just all those beautiful things that I could just feel his gratitude that he felt his dad was just being well taken care of by so many. Yeah.
That is a great, great story. And I'm glad to know you don't have to be a master carpenter to be a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity.
There you go, Nancy. It's
For sure.
yeah.
How many houses have you worked on in Evansville?
Well, actually, we just dedicated house number 601. So I think you'll see in my background, this past year, we're celebrating 40 years. And during that 40-year period, building our 600th home. And I believe that there are only maybe 25 other cities in the United States that have achieved that milestone of 600 homes. So, we're very proud of that. When I was hearing your question, Nancy, I thought for myself personally, do you know what I like to do? And I was out there with the AARP. I like to kind of pick up litter and clean out the gutters and do that kind of thing on the sidewalk, because I just always think, hey, it's the house, but it's also the surroundings. And here at Habitat, we say we're building homes, communities, and hope. So I kind of want to do my part to make the neighborhood look better. Yeah.
For sure.
Done a lot of yard work this weekend. I can agree with that. What are your future plans for this year and going forward into 2025?
What do you think, Addison? Can we do this again?
Oh yeah. Well, with the partnership, really what we're hoping to do at AARP Indiana is, of course, work alongside Habitat for Humanity. I mean, they are like family to us now. I mean, down there, like we really are like always looking forward to seeing them and working alongside them. I don't think that we can build another home in the next 5 years, probably. It was a fairly big lift for us.
Mhm.
It was a huge undertaking. However, we do have a good partnership infrastructure down there. There's a housing coalition called Housing Organizations United Serving Evansville, which AARP Indiana, Habitat, other housing partners, nonprofit developers participate in, advocating for ways that the local government, state and federal government can, leverage their powers to benefit the housing stock in Evansville. So we're actively engaged in that, and working alongside Habitat. I think as it pertains to this particular project, we did a really great job at documenting everything, with video. We especially on the day of the ribbon cutting, we have a lot of footage that we're hoping to edit into some short videos, not only share those on our website and social media, but when we go out and give, I mentioned earlier, home fit presentations. So home fit is that do-it-yourself, basically, presentation in a box to promote accessible homes and modifications you can make to your homes. We go out and give that presentation, staff and volunteers. So we would love to play, clips of the footage that we had filmed with this project and talk about, even though this was a new home build with Habitat for Humanity, not everyone will have this opportunity to start from scratch, essentially. This is just inspiration for you that, your home can be your forever home if you would like. So that's really what we're hoping to get across. We also are hoping to edit a caregiving version. So we highlight the caregiving aspects of this project as well when we give our caregiving presentation. So we're really just trying to spread the word and make sure that folks understand what resources are out there and how they might be able to make a difference in their lives as well.
So in Evansville, you built one house, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
One
gotcha.
house.
If an AARP group wanted to work with Habitat, how would they go about hooking up with Habitat? Just call the local office or?
Right. Certainly. I would suggest, Nancy, that they just go to our website, www.evansvillehabitat.org. Just go to the website, and they're going to see a lot of opportunities to call Brock Stone, our volunteer coordinator. They can give him a call and say, I'm interested, and we'll get them on board. And I think, as we talked earlier in the program, there are just so many opportunities that we call them no hammer volunteers. And that's everything from being a volunteer receptionist in the office, data processing. Every Habitat homeowner receives a beautiful counted cross stitch framed thing that they can put in their house. And so we always need people to do that. So there are just a lot of opportunities to get involved at any level. And it doesn't necessarily have to be swinging a hammer.
And so if you say live in Colorado, you would call the state AARP office and Habitat.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's how I did it, Sister Jane. I think I went on your website and I was like, I went to the staff contact page and I said, who are the 3 people I should probably be reaching out to? And you were one of them. So we set up that phone call and we talked about this idea. But whether to Sister Jane's point, whether your idea is big as building a home or it's a little smaller and you just want to get your hands dirty and volunteer with existing programming, homes that are currently being built, there's plenty for AARP volunteers to contribute to. So definitely recommend just reaching out. It can all start with a phone call,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say that we recently approved our latest strategic plan, and that kind of calls for us to double production in 5 years. Right now, we're building 20 homes a year, and we aspire by 2029 to be building 40 homes a year. One of the ways that we're going to do that is we're going to start a program of what's called panelized construction, where the components are built, put together under roof, and then transported to the job site. And I see this as a big opportunity for AARP volunteers, for 50+ residents of our city, because they're not going to be deterred by rain, snow, heat, cold. We're going to be able to build year-round in a controlled environment where people will feel very comfortable coming to this volunteer center, and they'll be helped to do very simple tasks that will aid the building effort. So just kind of wanted to put a plug in for that new way of construction
That's a great idea.
that I think will be very senior friendly. Yeah.
Very cool.
So Addison, a question just for you.
Mhm.
Are there other groups that AARP volunteers in Indiana have partnered with in a similar type of program?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially if you have contact with your state office staff, there are so many local organizations you can partner with to make a difference in your community. Others that come to mind, housing is not the only livable communities issue we work on. We also partner with our public transit agencies in our communities. We sponsor, free rides on election day, things like that for all voters, which is really cool. Conduct walk audits with different, neighborhood groups. But if you want to do something that's more arts and culture, we have partnered on local discounts to a community theater, or you could even do movies for grown-ups at a theater. So there's all sorts of like fun things that you can do with the local community assets in your city or town or county. So it's just up to your imagination and the resources that you have as to who you can partner with and what you can accomplish.
And so a local group should contact their state office and tell them their idea and touch bases that way to start.
That's certainly one way you could do it. Every state office has, their priority issues that they work on. They have a plan, a multi-year plan that they adhere to and try to make sure that the programming is consistent with that. But definitely, if you want to get in the mix and you have energy and fire in your belly and you want to partner with AARP, the state office is a great way to do it. So many volunteers have access to different resources, and like I said, it's just if you have if you're interested in doing it, you can do something one way or the other, whether it be close partnership with the state office or a little bit more independently.
Okay.
I'd kind of like to add just how many AARP volunteers here in Evansville have permeated organizations. They come to meetings. They're always there. They've learned a lot about many organizations such as the House, as Addison mentioned earlier, and they're there, and they're learning and they're contributing and they're advocating for.
Yeah, and honestly, the volunteers they're my colleagues. They
Yes.
are my eyes and ears on the ground. I can't be everywhere at once, so it's definitely a partnership, a team effort, and we work together to make positive impact. So thanks for that plug, Sister Jane.
Yeah. Awesome. They're awesome people. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you have both talked about what volunteers have gained from this project in Evansville, what AARP has gained from the project in Evansville. Any closing thoughts that the two of you have? And Sister Jane, we'll start with you.
Okay. I think my closing message, Nancy, would be to just encourage all of your listeners today and in the future, contact the AARP office, contact Habitat for Humanity, find out what's going on in your community, and just don't hesitate to reach out and to get involved. I think of, like I said, our local AARP volunteers, and how much they're learning about the issue of affordable housing. That's an issue that's nationwide. And I would say that our AARP volunteers here locally, they're becoming experts because they're willing to reach out, put in the time, come to meetings, learn lots, and then spread what they've learned. So all are welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Addison.
And Nancy, I would just add that, this was definitely not only one of my most favorite projects I've been involved with in my career so far, but one of the most important ones. And the reason for that is the partnership that has come from it. So don't underestimate, like I said, just reaching out and establishing a relationship. You don't know where it will lead. We not only were able to build a home for a caregiver and her family, one that was accessible for their needs, but the story is so powerful, and we're able to continue to tell that story and hopefully inspire other folks to do similar work. And it's something, it accomplished the goal that we set out to accomplish, was that we wanted a symbol of the advocacy work around housing issues that relate to someone who's 50 plus in the next life stages for them. How do we create more livable communities? What is a symbol that we can point to and say, we did that, we put our money where our mouth is. Now let's talk about this policy now, or let's talk about this initiative. So it's just something that we can continue to reference, and hopefully will lead to other positive developments in the community as well.
Okay, this has been great, very interesting, and Habitat is a tremendous for a city to have a habitat group is really a great thing. I think I read the other day that the poverty rate for senior citizens is 20 to 25% of all senior citizens are living in poverty.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's
takes you back to Dr. Andrews' vision, doesn't it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thank both of you, Sister Jane McClure, Addison Pollock, and the state Indiana AARP office. I can't talk today. And I thank you all for watching. We encourage you to subscribe to the Roost News podcast channel. It's on YouTube. And you can also listen to an audio version on whatever platform you use for podcasts. And please share this information with your colleagues, ask them to join us. And on behalf of the Roost News podcast team, I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.